Hello, you wonderful people. So for today's video, I'm going to talk about a discussion I've heard kind of passed around the internet for a little while, and that is the multiversal fatigue, which I think is so interesting because obviously we've heard most recently about superhero fatigue, and I've talked about that in the past, but multiverse fatigue seems so interesting to me because apparently people are saying like there are just so many things that are utilizing the multiverse, which I feel like, wait, is that really happening? Because I feel like off the top of my head, like obviously the big things are like Marvel and DC, but even they haven't done a lot with it. Like Marvel's only really utilized the multiverse in a lot of capacities in a more recent year, like maybe past year alone, because of Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, Loki, and most recently, well, Loki came back obviously for season 2, but obviously more recently would be like Ant-Man Quantumania. Like that's the only time they've really dabbled in the multiverse of it all. And then like on the DC front, and hey, maybe I'm mistaken, but like full on going multiverse stuff is the Flash. I mean, once again, you get into that complicated territory of like, well, the distinguishment between an alternate timeline and an actual different universe type of situation. And then outside of like Marvel and DC, what have we gotten? We've gotten like everything everywhere all at once, which I have not seen yet. It's on my movie list, but like that's one out on that, you know, spectrum of like multiverse movies. And like outside of that, like what else have we really gotten that's multiversal? I mean, other than that, you have like the DC shows in the Arrowverse, but that's about it. Like that's why I'm like, oh, we're multiverse stuff. I'm like, why? Like I feel like there haven't been enough big pop, because like even the Arrowverse stuff, it's like it has its fan base, but not everyone was like neck deep into that like I was. There were quite a few people who were, but at least on the movie scale, you can be like, well, that reached a bigger populace than like the DC shows in the Arrowverse. So that's why I'm like, there's not a, and like I said, I could be completely wrong, but I feel like there haven't been that many multiversal movies. And even so, it's just for it to be like, oh, it's this guy. I mean, I get the whole conversation about like obviously in TV and movie, and not just TV and movie, but even media, where you have like multiversal, like you have certain trends and they feel like multiverse stuff is the most recent trend. I feel like I don't turn around every few seconds, oh, it's another multiversal thing. I'm like, I feel like that doesn't happen, but maybe that's also because like I'm such a fan of it, because in my head it feels like a pillar of the science fictional genre. So it feels like, why wouldn't you do something in that, especially in the science fictional lane? Because when I think of science fiction, obviously the things that immediately come to my mind is something like robots, space travel, time travel, and kind of by extension multiversal stuff. It feels like, to me at the very least, those are like very like quintessential science fictional genre elements, that it just, to me, it feels like not having like, because to me I'm like, if you're kind of like, oh, you're tired of multiverse stuff, I'm like, are you tired of time travel stuff? Because I feel like I see way more time travel stuff than I do multiversal stuff, which isn't me being like, oh, we need to stop all the time travel stuff. Never. Time travel is my favorite aspect of science fiction genre. I love it. I'm always excited when I watch a new time travel show, and I'm always like, ooh, what are your time travel rules? Because every story, you know, comes up with their own rules that they can bend or break or go by, you know. So I'm always interested in that, and understanding the rules of it and the repercussions. Like most recently, obviously Loki obviously deals a lot with that, be the most recent thing I've watched. But other than that would be, there's a show called The Lazarus Project, how they handle time travel. That's a whole thing. Obviously I'll make a video about that in the future, talking about that. But that's why I'm like, there's still so many time travel properties that are coming out, and I feel like time travel doesn't get the same. Like I said, because to me, I look at them as kind of like, God, siblings to each other, time travel and multiverse stuff, that they're kind of extensions of each other. So, like I said, I feel I see way more time travel than I do multiversal stuff. So for people to be like, yeah, I'm tired of this trend, to me, I'm like, wait, where's everyone seeing this? I even hear comic book people saying this, which I can understand. You've had to deal with the multiverse way more in your medium. If you're a comic book person, you've had to deal with that way more than the general public has on the more adaptation front, whether it's like TV shows, video games, or movies. I don't really know too many multiversal video games. I'm not saying there aren't any, it's just like none that I can really think of off the top of my head. But either way, it's like, it's understandable. The multiverses have existed for decades in DC and Marvel, so you've had to deal with it. I get, like, once again, it's a conversation I've talked about in the past where I know people have their issues with just multiverse stories in general because they feel like it's lazy writing. It's like, oh, like, you do it just for fan servicing type of thing of like, oh, this character, you're able to bring them over and yada yada yada. Oh, does death not mean anything? I made a video a long time ago, a couple years ago, where I talked about my disagreement with that even with a multiverse thing, you can still tell stories that do matter. That just because this character died and there's another version and out there, it still doesn't take away from this character's death. I know that's a whole, once again, lengthier conversation. Like I said, I've done a video about that already. It might be a topic I might revisit soon enough in the future. We'll see. But I understand that element of like, oh, you think it's lazy writing in that regard of like, oh, something's kind of screwed up, easy fix, and you get to reboot and restart things. But to me, that also allows you to tell very interesting stories of things changing by the most minute of details or the most like butterfly effect and massive changes rippling throughout type of differences between like the different universes in like a multiversal sense. Like, I think there's a lot of interesting stories you can tell like that. Like, but like I said, someone on a comic book side of things, I can understand being a little miffed about that. But I'd also assume you'd be like, yeah, I'm over it, in the sense of, yeah, it's fine. Like, I'm so used to it that it's like movies and TV shows doing it is not that big of a deal because I've had to deal with it for decades. And comics, or maybe you're like, hey, had to deal with it for so long in comics, I'm tired of it penetrating the other mediums of media that I enjoy consuming. Like, it's like I said, it's just, that's where my brain goes every time people bring up that stuff. It just doesn't seem like it's everywhere, you know? Like I said, unless you're a comic book person, then I can be like, okay, I understand why you feel like it's everywhere, because it kind of is everywhere with your comics, especially when they kind of get rebooted every once in a while. I don't know if that always gets, I'm not the comic book person, so I can't speak on that, but I don't know if that's always like a, universal reboot thing. You know, comics reboot themselves, especially on the superhero front with DC and Marvel, reboot themselves every so often just to kind of get, sales back up and stuff like that. But also, once again, wanting to start, so you're not as adherent to previous continuity, you're going to get to start fresh, kind of start off with your take and so on and so forth, right? So I kind of just rambling on, so I'll end things kind of here. But like I said, these are just my thoughts. Love to get to know your thoughts in the comments down below. Do you feel like there is too much multiversal stuff? Let me know some of the examples. Do you feel like, it doesn't even just have to be tied to the superhero genre, whether it's movie or TV shows or even comics. Have you seen a lot of multiversal movies? Just let me know your thoughts. I love to hear other people's thoughts on this subject. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.